Welcome everyone to Deck Talk, where you will be prepared. Deck Talk is a brand new series where we're going to be talking with deck creators, pros, and commentators, talking about what's in the meta, what decks they're playing, and what you should be looking for. Alright, today's first and pretty much only guest is a really good friend of mine, and I've known him since I've been playing Hearthstone. This man is a methodical tactician, great deck creator, the one, the only, the Ironbeak Owl himself, Mr. Jotto.
Hello. Thanks for having me on for the first episode, Shiv.
Thank you for coming on. Alright, so, Jotto, I've known you forever and a day, and I can sing your accolades, like, till I'm blue in the face. So, how about you tell everybody who you are and why they should be paying attention?
Okay, so I've been doing YouTube videos for about a year now on Hearthstone stuff. I've been staying up to date with the metagame pretty much since Hearthstone has even been in alpha, and most of the content I do is about getting better at the game, one step at a time, analyzing things, analyzing pro players, things like that. And recently, in the past couple months, I also joined and ended up captaining a pro team called Acebreakers, and we're trying to get out there. We just pretty much have been doing really, really well in some of the Fireside Gathering stuff, and also in some of Gamers Connect tournaments and things like that.
Yes, I believe your team took first and second place in that tournament.
Yep.
All right. Would have actually had another person possibly in third, but you ended up having to beat one of your own players.
Yeah, team killing is annoying.
All right, so that's really good. Now, you brought us a deck today, Crispy's Kitty. It's a Druid deck. So give us a little rundown on this deck.
This is basically what happens when Crispy, who is the main deck builder on the team. We have a couple deck builders, but he's the one who really, really focuses on it all the time. This is basically what happens when he comes across a Stranglethorn Tiger. Now, this is a mid-range Druid list that is playing Stranglethorn Tigers instead of Azure Drakes, and is also playing at quite a top-heavy curve compared to normal, and is playing very, very dynamic and reactive curve as opposed to the early pressure and proactive curve that the fast Druids are playing, for example.
Right, right. Now, it's kind of interesting, because I do remember about 2 weeks back I was talking about Stranglethorn Tigers in these type of decks, and you were arguing against it, but now it's kind of catching on.
Well, I mean, it hasn't really caught back on, but we definitely did some testing for it, and the main reason for that was because 2 weeks ago, the metagame was the same. I mean, the metagame is always the same at the moment, but the difference was that the builds people were playing were designed to beat these slower decks. So if you had a lot of early pressure with 4/4 drops and Yeti's Violet Teacher's Power of the Wild combos, just go, 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 you're actually just flattening people. But now they're starting to tech against those kinds of faster Druid decks, and so the heavier curved against Zoo and things like that is actually much more useful, and Stranglethorn Tiger is much, much better against Miracle.
Oh, yes.
So that's where the shift came in.
Alrighty then. So let's break this down. Give me like the overall strategy of it, like what you're going to want in your opening hand, how you're going to want to play this out.
Okay, so the main purpose of this deck is to stabilize your early game and have the option of curving into late game while having the combo Force Nature Savage Roar to end games out of nowhere. It's 14 damage to the face, or if you have an Innervate and another Roar, it's 22. It's a lot of burst damage, you can kill people out of nowhere. So this deck has two game plans. In certain matchups like Handlock, you want to be the early game beatdown with Joe and Yetis, Harvest Golems, and sort of react to their plays, Big Game Hunter, things like that, and just go, 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 and then combo kill them. But in decks which are faster than you, you take the control route. This is the unique thing about Druid. And that is where the Ancient of War comes in, and things like Ancient Allure. They let you respond to aggressive plays in powerful ways that shift momentum back in your court. And that's where the main strength of the deck comes from. Opening hand-wise, while from matchup to matchup it does change, what you generally want is Innervate, Wild Growth, and Harvest Golems, and sometimes Wrath. Innervate is better going second than Wild Growth, but Wild Growth is better going first, because Innervate with the coin is really, really powerful. But if you're going first, the card advantage can be quite hard to sort of keep up with if you have to Innervate something out.
Very much so. I discovered this the hard way.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about the matchups. Let's talk about the top three.
Okay. So that would be Rogue, Druid, and Warlock.
Right. See, we're not going over specific decks because there's multiple different variations per deck, but we're actually going via class for the best strategy in dealing with them.
Yeah, because this is much more of a ladder deck than a tournament deck. I would actually say that for any Ancient of War deck at the moment, because Ancient of War is really, really bad against Handlock, and it's also bad against Black Knight and Shaman, and those are played a lot in tournaments,
Yes,
not so much on ladder.
Black Knight's one of the best utility cards. It's a Yeti and a removal at the same time.
Exactly. So this is much more of a ladder deck. So as far as ladder strategies goes, you don't know your opponent's archetype, so you just have to take it off face value. So we'll get the simpler one out of the way first, which is the Druid Mirror. The Druid Mirror at the moment is incredibly swingy, and it's one of the worst games of Hearthstone you'll probably ever play.
It truly is. It's just a nightmare. And there's one thing you need in your opening. If you don't get it and he gets it, you pretty much should just concede.
Its Wild Growth is the best card in the deck in that matchup if you get it on turn 2, and Innervate is the second best card in the deck. And then Harvest Golem is the only other card you even consider keeping.
Right. Right.
It's pretty miserable, but that's how simple it is in the mirror. Harvest Golem, Wild Growth, Innervate. Don't keep 2 copies of any of them.
Exactly. Now, through external testing, it was actually shown that if you Wild Growth before your opponent who's a Druid, then you had 15% advantage. Do you think this is actually true?
I mean, I'm surprised it's so low. It feels like 50% half the time, but it also depends on their hand if they can capitalize on it, so that probably balances out a bit.
All right, all right. Okay, so mirror match, how are you going to want to try to play that?
It's basically maintain board control at all costs. If you lose board control in the mirror in the mid game, you will die in 2 turns.
Right.
Because of the combo. The combo will do absurd amounts of damage in the mirror. And it's pretty bad. If it gets if neither of you have the combo though, and it gets rather stally, whoever has the Ancient of Lore to draw on turn 7 will usually win.
In theory, yeah.
So those are the major cards. You got combo, Wild Growth, Innervate, Ancient of Lore.
That's pretty straightforward there. All right, let's go on to the next one in this.
Alright, so if we move on to Rogue, Rogue is the one which is probably the hardest to play against, and why Stranglethorn Tigers are even in this deck. Against Rogue, you keep Wild Growth, Innervate, Harvest Golem, you keep in pretty much every matchup. Wrath, you actually do keep, because against Miracle it kills a 3-3, but if it's Backspace Rogue, you really need it. Absolutely need it to beat the Rush. And what you want in the first couple turns would involve, especially if you got ramp, would involve things like Chillwind Yeti, Druid Claw, Stranglethorn Tiger. Stranglethorn Tiger is arguably the best deck against. It's the best card against Miracle because they can't interact with it at all.
That's right.
Hunters have been abusing this for the past month or so against Miracle, but the Tiger. It's not exactly a secret, but anyway. Seeing the Tiger in more decks is basically because of Miracle. They can't interact with it. It's 5 damage to the face, or it kills a Drake or something for free, and they can't do anything about it.
Right. But then again, on the other hand, some Miracles don't even have to worry about it, because by the time you get it out, they've already got their stuff in, and it's already stealthed. So
usually you're faster than them, and it does get damage in. The main thing that Stranglethorn Tiger does as well in the matchups you have to wait in is that you can combo with the Tiger on the board, and they can't do anything to get the Tiger off the board.
Well, that's true.
Which is 21 damage, which is nuts.
All right, all right. Now, I also noticed you got an Argent Commander in this deck. How does that play in any of these matchups?
Argent Commander is designed to smooth out the barrier between 5 and 7, which a lot of people have issues with, because Black Knight is situational, Force of Nature is not really a 6-drop. So a lot of people will find they have to go 5-drop, 5-drop, 7-drop, or hope they have an Innervate, whereas Argent Commander lets you remove something that they play on turn 5, like Azure Drake, for instance, helps you clear something, and it keeps board position in your court, so you have time to play your 7-drops.
Good response. All right, now the third, and probably one of the more hated classes.
Oh, this is going to be complicated. The Warlock versus Druid matchup is incredibly complicated. It's very, very difficult matchup to play. Zoo, not so much. Handlock, definitely. Zoo is a lot about just getting your Ancient of War out on turn 7. If you do, you pretty much win. And just stabilizing the board. You need to live till turn 7 on about 10 life, and if you accomplish that, then Ancient of War will just win the game.
Well, hold on now. We've been seeing a lot of zoos packing Ironbeak Owls, ironically enough.
Yeah, that's mostly because of Ancient of War. So sometimes they can. However, even they're top decking 2 cards a turn, so they need to silence it. Then they need to also top deck like a Doomguard or something on top of the silence. Because if they just silence it, usually you're keeping their board clear as well. So if they just silence it, then they can't really capitalize on it as much. The only one that could give you a lot of trouble is if there's a Zoo deck running Black Knight, which is not unheard of, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is pretty rare. We have seen it, though. We have definitely
Yeah, we have seen it. It is pretty rare, though, so it's not something you can really play around. But every so often it will happen.
All right, all right. So, what about against the Handlock? This is the match that a lot of people actually have a lot of difficulty. How are you going to play against that?
All right, Handlock is the most dynamic and most difficult matchup for Druid to play. And in my case, I never had problems with the Handlock matchup because I'm very, very methodical. I'm very calculating. So, and that's pretty much all the matchup is. It's about calculated risk and it's a waiting game. You want to get board control at all costs. Right. So people play Druid of Claws in charge against Handlock. There is no point. If you play it in taunt, you will get them down to 17 life no matter what.
Right.
No point in playing it in charge unless you need to kill something. And the Stranglethorn Tiger helps a lot in this matchup. It kills Ancient Watchers.
Mm-hmm.
It helps kill Giants with Wrath. It lets you combo them from 21, which is a big deal because you want to combo them. You want to kill them from a range where the Giants, the Molten Giants, don't even come into it.
Right.
You beat their 4 threats and you win. That's how you win that matchup.
I'd also like to point out Keeper of the Grove silences Twilight Drake to where your hero power can just kill it.
Keeper is the most important card against Warlock in general. You always keep 1 in your opening hand, and if you go second, I would even consider keeping 2. Depends on what the other 2 cards are. Big Game Hunter, you also almost always keep, because against Zoo, you do have later game top decks you can get against Zoo, whereas against Handlock, it's pretty much going to win you the game.
Right, because turn 4 Mountain Giant is just so hard to deal with in most cases, and having an instant response can really throw their game off.
Exactly.
Right. All right. So, well, I think that's like the top decks right there that we're seeing in like the 5 and up legendary meta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the whole meta game in a nutshell, actually.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, are there any special pro tips you could give for using this deck? Certain little things that people need to pay attention to?
Yeah, some things would be don't get greedy with your Ancient Allure. Sometimes you need to heal. Don't always draw with them, because you're going to die if you do all the time.
Now, is there a life amount that you would normally suggest? If, you know, above this, go ahead. Below this, no?
20. That's the divide. The only way you play Ancient Allure to draw if you're below 20 is if you're really far behind. And you need to catch up. 20 is pretty much the life barrier. The only exception being if you're against Zoo and you have a taunt on the board and you're at like 15 or something.
I can see that.
But it's generally 20.
I can see that. All right. Well, hey, thank you very much for coming out. Again, this was Deck Talk. If you like this show, cool, awesome. We'll have hopefully more coming out next week, unless Naxxramas is released, and then I'll have other content. But this show will be returning. So, goodbye, everybody, and thank you. Jotto.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope to come on at some other time.